I just wanted dinner. That was it. Nothing dramatic. No confrontation. No betrayal. Just a quiet meal to mark the end of a long, soul-draining day. It had been one of those weeks where everything felt like too much. Too many meetings, too many fake smiles, too many hours trying to fix problems that weren't mine to fix. I didn't even plan on going out. I was halfway home before the thought of cooking made my stomach turn. That's when I remembered the bistro near the financial district. Quiet place, good food, just upscale enough that nobody brings loud kids or has birthday parties. It used to be our spot, Lily's and mine, back when things still felt real. We hadn't been there in months, maybe even a year. Still, the idea of being somewhere familiar, somewhere that reminded me of simpler days, felt comforting. I didn't think twice. I got lucky with parking. Walked in a little before 7, loosened my tie, and asked for a table for one. The hostess smiled like she pitied me. Maybe she thought I'd been stood up or something. I didn't care. I just wanted a corner table, a menu, and some silence. She led me toward the back, past the bar, past the wall of booths lined with soft gold lighting. The place was about half full, mostly couples, a few solo diners like me, and a group of coworkers near the center celebrating something with overpriced wine. Then I saw her. I wish I could say I just had a gut feeling or a strange chill down my spine. But no, it was obvious. Like getting hit in the face with a wave you never saw coming. She was sitting near the window, angled just slightly so I could see her face in profile, Lily. My wife. And not the version I had seen lately. Not the tired, distracted woman who brushed past me in the hallway or yawned through dinner, or spent most nights scrolling through her phone under the covers. No, this was a different version. The polished one. Her hair was curled, soft waves falling perfectly over her shoulders. She wore earrings I hadn't seen before, little silver hoops, and a dress that clung to her in ways I didn't even know she still shopped for. Dark green, off-shoulder, elegant. Definitely not meeting with coworkers after a long day attire. She was glowing, alive in a way she hadn't been in months, and sitting directly across from her was a man. I'd never seen him before. Maybe early 30s, clean-shaven, dark hair, confident posture. He looked comfortable, like this wasn't their first dinner, like he belonged there. He said something, and she laughed, really laughed, the kind of laugh I used to live for. She tilted her head, twirled her hair, leaned in just slightly across the table. Her eyes never left him. There was no hesitation, no guilt, no worry about being seen. If she noticed me as I walked by, she didn't flinch. It wasn't until their dessert came, a single slice of something chocolate, rich, expensive, that everything clicked into place. 1 plate, 2 spoons. The way she leaned forward to feed herself a bite, then pointed to the corner of his mouth as if she'd done that before. The little smirk he gave her in return. I stopped walking. I stood there in the middle of the restaurant, halfway to my table, like an idiot frozen in time. The world kept moving. Waiters weaved around me. The clink of glasses continued. Someone laughed from the bar, but I couldn't move. Then she looked up. Her eyes met mine across the room, and something flickered in her expression. Not shock, not even fear, just recognition, then calculation. She blinked, set her spoon down, and excused herself with a smile. She walked toward me like it was nothing, like she wasn't cheating, like we were just bumping into each other on the street. "Oh my God," she said, smiling too wide. "Harry, what are you doing here?" I stared at her. She kept going. "This is so random. I didn't even know you liked this place anymore." My mouth stayed shut. I felt something crawl under my skin, disbelief, nausea, something like betrayal simmering just below my ribs. She glanced over her shoulder toward the table, then back at me. "I'm here with Ryan. You remember me mentioning him, right? From the firm? We're doing that redevelopment project together." She had never once said that name to me. I would have remembered. I still didn't speak. She tucked her hair behind her ear, glanced around like she hoped no one was watching. Then she lowered her voice. "Harry, please don't make a thing out of this." "A thing? I know what it looks like." she added quickly. But it's literally just dinner. He's going through a breakup, and I told him I'd be a distraction for the night. Right? Then why the dress? The laughter? The shared dessert? I kept staring. She shifted her weight, her voice turning sharper. You don't have to look at me like that. You're always doing this, assuming the worst. I can't even have a conversation without you turning it into some big jealous meltdown. That was the moment I really knew, that this wasn't new. That this wasn't a misunderstanding. That the version of Lily I'd been living with had checked out a long time ago. Because she wasn't explaining. She wasn't apologizing. She was deflecting, shifting the spotlight like I was the one being irrational. You seriously look like you're about to explode, she said under her breath, suddenly tight-lipped. People are staring. Can you not do this here? I looked past her, toward the man still sitting at the table, scrolling through something on his phone, completely unfazed. He didn't look uncomfortable. He didn't look like this was his coworker's husband standing 20 feet away. He looked like he knew, and that made it worse. Lily stepped closer, her voice softening again. I'll be home later. Just don't overthink this, okay? Then she turned around and walked back to the table. Just like that. Sat down, picked up her spoon, laughed again. As if I had been a minor inconvenience, some random moment to manage, nothing more. I stood there a second longer before the hostess returned and asked if I still wanted to be seated. I said no. I mumbled something about forgetting a meeting and walked straight out. I didn't remember driving home. I didn't remember what was on the radio. My hands stayed at 10 and 2, tight around the steering wheel, knuckles pale from the pressure. All I could think about was the way she looked at him, and then the way she looked at me, like I was the problem. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the faint hum of the air conditioning blending with the chaos inside my head. Lily came home sometime after midnight. I didn't move. She walked softly, trying not to wake me, but I wasn't asleep, not even close. She paused at the doorway, maybe checking if I was really out. Then she turned and went straight to the guest room. I just listened to her footsteps. I didn't say a word. That was when it started, the unraveling. The unintentional rewinding of every memory, every conversation, every little thing that used to feel harmless. They came back to me one by one, like puzzle pieces I hadn't realized were part of the same picture. And now the picture was crystal clear. Started small, months ago. I remember the first time she said she had to stay late for a planning meeting. Some new initiative at work, supposedly a high-pressure team rollout that required after-hours coordination. She'd text me around 6:30, say not to wait up, and usually come back after 10 p.m. Hair slightly tousled, a vague smell of wine on her breath. At the time, I believed her. Why wouldn't I? I wasn't the paranoid type, and she sounded tired when she came home. But now that I'd seen her in that green dress, laughing over dessert with another man, I couldn't unsee it. And then there was the perfume. God, how did I not notice that? Lily used to wear this soft floral scent I loved. I'd bought it for her one Christmas. She wore it sparingly, usually for date nights. But sometime in the last few months, she started wearing something else. Stronger, muskier, more grown up. At first, I thought it was a sample or maybe a gift from a friend. I complimented her on it once, and she gave this tight smile and said, "Just wanted to try something new." Looking back, that smile was the first red flag. It didn't reach her eyes. Then her phone habits changed. Lily had never been secretive with her phone. She used to leave it all over the house, on the kitchen counter, the nightstand, even face up on the couch when she went to the bathroom. But now it was always with her, and always face down. I remember the first time I noticed. We were watching a movie, and her phone lit up 3 times in a row. She didn't pick it up, just glanced at it, flipped it upside down, and slid it beneath a pillow. I asked if everything was okay. She waved it off. Group chat with the girls. It's nothing. I believed her. God, I wanted to believe her. A few weeks later, I noticed her lock screen had changed. Not the wallpaper, the passcode. I found out the hard way when I tried to silence an alarm for her one morning and it asked for a PIN I didn't know. New phone update, she said. I had to reset it. She never offered the new code. I didn't ask. Because trust, right? You don't want to be that guy, the one who digs through his wife's phone like a teenager in a bad Netflix drama. So I let it go. I let a lot go. Even the lingerie. That should have been the moment it all clicked. A few months ago, I was putting away laundry and found a couple of new pieces in her drawer. Lacy, expensive, definitely not from Target. I had never seen her wear them. Not for me. When I asked, she said she'd bought them on sale and hadn't had a chance to try them on yet. She never did. At least not in front of me. And then there was the Instagram wipe. That one hurt more than I expected. One day, I opened her page to look at a photo from our anniversary trip, and it was gone. Along with most of the photos of us. Every couple selfie, every vacation picture, even the one from our engagement party. Scrubbed. When I asked her about it, she gave some half excuse about wanting to clean up her profile and make it more professional. She said she was getting serious about branding, which, coming from a civil engineer, was odd. But I nodded, said, "Makes sense." I didn't want to come off as insecure, but now it all looked different. Not random, not harmless, patterned, intentional. Even the reset weekends. That was her term. She started using it sometime last spring. She'd take off for a weekend every 6 weeks or so. Usually to a cabin, sometimes to a yoga retreat. She claimed it was just to clear her head, journal, unplug from tech. Mental health, she said. I encouraged it. I thought it was healthy. I even offered to come along once. Make it a couple's getaway. She laughed and said, "It defeats the purpose, babe. It's a women's thing. Sacred space and all that." And I believed her, because that's what love does, right? It believes. But belief only goes so far. And after seeing her with that man at the bistro, I couldn't go back to blind trust. I didn't want to believe anymore, I wanted to know. I sat up that night and opened her calendar. It was synced to our shared Google account, mostly blank except for some meetings and reminders. I went back through the months, cross-checking the nights she'd been at the office or with the girls or resetting in the woods. A lot of them were blank. Some had placeholder events like team call or out-of-town training. But there was no detail, no links, no meeting notes, nothing that tied back to her actual work. I started checking my texts to her on those nights, looking at her responses, the phrasing, the tone. Always short, always cheerful, always just a little too polished. Then I opened our photo folder, the shared cloud album we both used to dump trip pictures and random stuff into. The uploads had slowed. The last photo of us together was from 6 months ago. Her uploads were mostly nature **TS now. Trees, coffee cups, a random blurry sunset. Never her. Never us. I opened her last birthday card to me. It was generic. "Love you always, happy birthday." Written in blue ink. Her name signed at the bottom like she was filling out a postcard. No memory. No inside joke. No story about our past. Just filler. I sat there on the edge of the bed with that card in one hand and my phone in the other, and it hit me like a gut punch. This didn't start last night. This didn't even start last month. Lily had been drifting for a long time. I was just too slow to notice. Or maybe I noticed and chose not to see it. There were moments I should have asked questions. Like when she came home once with a cracked phone case and said she dropped it in the garage. But the case didn't have a scuff mark. It looked like someone had stomped on it. I shrugged it off. Or the time I found a receipt in her coat pocket from a wine bar we'd never been to. 2 glasses of red. 1 charcuterie board. A date for 2, basically. She told me it was with a client. I said cool. I didn't ask for more. Each moment had seemed small. But now they loomed large. They were all flashing neon signs. Signs I'd walked right past because I didn't want to think she was capable of what I saw with my own eyes that night. But she was. And suddenly, I wasn't wondering if there was something going on. I was wondering how long it had been going on. The truth unfolded in front of him. No words, no excuses. She said she was going to a yoga retreat. That was her exact wording. Me and a few of the girls. 3 nights. No phones, no internet. Just quiet, journaling, hiking, detoxing from all the screens and noise. You know? She packed Thursday night, rolled up her yoga mat, tossed in leggings, tank tops, that big earthy sweater she never wore at home. A couple of those candles she liked, lavender and sage. She even made a playlist. Ambient forest sounds, she called it. I watched her move around the bedroom like she was gearing up for spiritual enlightenment. I nodded. I smiled. I even helped her carry her bag to the car. And when she kissed me goodbye Friday morning, I told her, "Have fun. Be safe." She squeezed my hand and said, "Thanks for understanding." Understanding. She always used that word when she meant, "Thanks for not asking." That morning I didn't ask, but I did check. I hadn't told her that our phones were still linked through Find My, a setting we'd enabled years ago for convenience. I forgot about it. Apparently, so did she. So when her message came in that night, "Just got here. It's beautiful. No signal soon. Love you." I opened the app and watched her dot blink steadily in a place that wasn't anywhere near a retreat. She wasn't in the mountains. Not even close. She was in a neighborhood, suburban, quiet, 2 cities over. Cul-de-sac, actually. Rows of matching houses, trimmed hedges, porch lights glowing warm against the winter dusk. Normal. Safe. The kind of place people settle into when they're done pretending. I stared at the screen like maybe it was a glitch. It wasn't. I zoomed in. Street name, Red Maple Lane. There were no cabins, no forests, no yoga mats. I told myself I wasn't going to do anything crazy. I wasn't going to drive there. I wasn't going to spy. I wasn't going to let my imagination turn into obsession. Then I grabbed my keys. The drive was about 45 minutes. I barely remember it. Just the soft hum of the engine and the rhythm of my thoughts repeating over and over again. What if I'm wrong? What if there's an explanation? But deep down I already knew. It was the way she had hugged me goodbye that morning, with a kind of practiced softness. Like she was saying farewell to a character she'd outgrown. I parked across the street. Didn't even pull into the cul-de-sac. Just stopped a few houses up and cut the engine. The sun was just beginning to fade, casting long golden shadows across the street. A few kids were riding scooters. Someone watered their front lawn. A woman walked a tiny dog in a sweater. And there it was, her car. Parked neatly in the driveway of a 2-story beige house with white trim and a wide front porch. Lights on in the living room. Curtains drawn, but not all the way. My hands gripped the steering wheel for a full 5 minutes before I moved. I didn't get out. I didn't knock. I just waited. Then, right around 6:40, the front door opened. Lily stepped out, barefoot, hair pulled up into a messy bun, wearing a t-shirt that wasn't hers, too big, too soft, definitely male. In her hand was a mug of coffee, or tea, something steaming. She smiled as she looked back into the house and said something I couldn't hear. Then he came out. Same guy from the bistro, Ryan. No work clothes this time. Just gray joggers and a long-sleeve tee. He stepped onto the porch like he belonged there. Like this was his place and she was his person. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. She leaned into him without hesitation. Not like they were sneaking. Not like this was risky. Like it was normal. They stood there together for a few minutes, sipping from their mugs, talking, laughing softly. A porch light flickered on above them. She looked up at him. He kissed the top of her head. And that was it. That was the truth. No words. No accusations. No way to spin it. Just 2 people standing on a porch, looking comfortable. Familiar. Lived in. As if I had never existed. I sat frozen in my car. No anger. Not yet. Just the stillness, cold, heavy, unmistakable. Because everything I had doubted, everything I had tried to rationalize or explain away, was right in front of me. Lily hadn't just strayed. She had moved on. Emotionally, mentally, maybe even physically. She had transferred whatever part of herself used to belong to me and handed it off to someone else. Slowly, piece by piece, until there was nothing left to claim. And I didn't even see it happen. That kind of betrayal isn't a car crash. It's a leak in the foundation. Quiet, slow, devastating. And by the time you notice the floor's uneven, the entire house is already sinking. I don't know how long I sat there. long enough for the sky to darken, long enough for porch lights to flicker on across the block. At some point, Lily and Ryan went back inside. I didn't watch them go. I just stared at the spot where they'd been standing. Eventually, I started the car, drove a few blocks away, parked again, sat in silence. I looked at the time, 7:18. At that moment, Lily was probably telling him about her week. Maybe she was putting something in the oven. Maybe she was laughing at a meme he sent. Or maybe they were just sitting on the couch, legs tangled, pretending the world didn't exist outside that beige house. I wondered what she had told him about me. Did she say we were separated? That I was controlling? Did she pretend we were just roommates now? Just some guy who used to love her but didn't understand her anymore? I wanted to believe he didn't know, that she hadn't told him the full story. But the way he looked at her at that restaurant, the way he put his arm around her tonight, that wasn't a man hiding something. That was a man who'd been given permission. I drove home in silence. Didn't blast music. Didn't scream. I didn't even cry. I felt numb. Not the dramatic kind. Just a dull emptiness. Like I had been replaced by a version of myself that no longer felt hunger, or sleep, or hope. When I pulled into the driveway, the porch light was still on. Her scent was still in the hallway, that strong new perfume I used to think was for work events. Her shoes still lined up near the door. Her coffee mug was still in the sink. Everything looked the same, but nothing was. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about betrayal. It was about erasure. She hadn't just cheated. She had rewritten the story of us without me. Left me as a footnote in a chapter she no longer bothered to read. She got back Sunday night just after 8 p.m. I heard her car pull into the driveway the same way I always did. Engine humming low, tires crunching over gravel. A few seconds later, the door opened and closed with that same casual clunk. I was sitting on the couch when I heard the keys drop into the ceramic dish by the door. She was humming, like she hadn't just spent the weekend curled into someone else's chest. "Hey, babe," she called cheerfully. "I'm home." I didn't move. She stepped into the living room wearing sweatpants and a hoodie, her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She had a canvas tote bag slung over one shoulder and a box of organic tea in the other hand. Her face lit up when she saw me, like this was a normal Sunday, like everything was still intact. "You would have loved it," she said, setting her stuff down on the coffee table. The cabin was right by a stream, and the air just smelled clean, you know? I looked at her. I nodded once. She didn't seem to notice my silence. Or maybe she did and was already choosing to ignore it. That was a SK*LL she'd been perfecting lately. Selective blindness. "I brought you back one of those muffins you like," she said, digging through her tote. "Well, it's more of a protein cookie thing, but it's got dark chocolate and almonds." I stared at the cookie in its crinkled brown bag. It looked like something a fitness coach would give a prize-winning golden retriever. She smiled like it was a peace offering. Then came the questions. "How was your weekend? You get any sleep? Oh, and did the plumber ever email back?" Each one a casual thread tossed out like bait. I didn't bite. I gave short answers, clipped, plain, almost robotic. I watched her closely, wondering if she'd crack. Wondering when the mask would slip. But it didn't. She moved through the house like she had nothing to hide. Unpacked candles, essential oils, a brochure about mindfulness. She opened the fridge and complained that we were out of oat milk. She told me she might try going vegan, just for a month, see how it feels. Then she picked up her phone, the same phone she used to lie about where she was, and scrolled casually, thumbs tapping as if she hadn't just spent 72 hours pretending I didn't exist. At one point she glanced at me and said, "You're really quiet. Are you okay?" I wanted to laugh. I wanted to ask, "Are you?" But I didn't. I just said, "Tired." She nodded. "Me too." Later that night, she brushed her teeth beside me at the sink like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't stood barefoot on another man's porch, wearing his shirt, drinking his coffee. She talked about a podcast she listened to on the drive home, something about productivity and morning rituals. I nodded again. Every word she said sounded like static in my ears. And still, she didn't flinch. That was what disturbed me most. Not the betrayal itself, but the performance that followed. She knew what she'd done. She knew what I might know. And still, she acted like everything was normal. No guilt. No awkward pauses. No hesitation. She kissed me on the cheek that night. Not the lips, and said, "Glad you're here." I lay in bed for hours after she fell asleep, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing. I stared at the ceiling again, just like before, except now I understood the game she was playing. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even scared. She was confident, because in her mind, she'd already rewritten the narrative. In this version of the story, I was the quiet one, the distant one, the guy who forgot to check in, the guy who no longer excited her. That's how she would justify it if she ever had to. She'd say things like, "I didn't feel seen," or "We were growing apart." She'd frame it like an accident, a misstep, something tragic but inevitable. But it wasn't an accident. It was a choice, repeated, reinforced, comfortable. And now she was back, slipping back into our shared life like nothing had happened, like she still lived here, like she still belonged. The next morning, she made coffee before I could. She poured it into my favorite mug, the one with the tiny chip on the handle, and set it down on the counter like it meant something. "Want toast?" she asked. "No thanks." "You sure?" "Yeah." She gave me that too-sweet smile and turned to make her own. She hummed again, some old Fleetwood Mac song she liked to play on Sundays. I listened to her spread almond butter on sourdough like she hadn't just erased me 48 hours ago. I studied her, the way she moved, the way she filled space, the way she asked about my day. Every bit of it was calculated, not in an evil way, not cartoon villain calculated, but practiced. She was performing the role of a wife. She had the lines memorized, the gestures rehearsed, the right balance of affection and independence. But her eyes didn't match her words. Her touches didn't carry warmth. Her smiles didn't reach her core. It was like watching someone perform a character they no longer cared about, just going through the motions, waiting for the curtain to fall. That night, she lit a candle in the bedroom, one of the new ones she brought back. "Cedar and birch," she said, like that explained everything. The smell made my stomach turn. We lay side by side in silence. She tapped on her phone, headphones in. I watched the shadows flicker on the ceiling, wondering how many more nights I'd spend pretending. I wanted to ask her, "Who are you when I'm not looking?" But I already knew. She wasn't here anymore. She was still in that quiet house on Red Maple Lane. Still on that porch, barefoot, wearing his shirt, drinking his coffee, smiling like the world was finally in focus. This, our home, our bed, our life, was the afterimage. The version of us that hadn't caught up to reality yet. She invited me. That was the part that threw me. It was a Thursday morning. I was halfway through my first cup of coffee when Lily walked into the kitchen already dressed. Navy skirt, white blouse, phone in hand, eyes bright. "Hey," she said lightly. "My firm's doing a holiday mixer tomorrow night. You should come." I blinked at her. She poured herself some coffee and continued as if we'd talked about it before. "It's at the Hamilton Hotel downtown. Cocktail dress code, open bar, finger food. Everyone's bringing their spouses." I stared. She looked up, finally meeting my eyes. "What?" she asked, like I was the one being weird. "You want me to come?" She nodded. "Yeah, I figured. I mean, it might be good. Get out of the house, meet some people." Her tone was off, too neutral, too rehearsed, like she was offering me a plate of leftovers. "You said it was just co-workers?" "It is," she said, sipping her coffee. "But I told them I might bring you. Just thought it'd be nice." I should have said no. Should have found some excuse. But something in the way she spoke, the calculated calm, made me curious. Was she daring me? Testing me? Or had she grown so comfortable in her lie that she no longer cared? So I said yes. "Sure," I told her. "Why not?" And that was it. She smiled just a little too long and went back to her emails. The next evening, I put on a suit and watched her float down the stairs in a black dress that cut just above the knee. It wasn't showy, but it was flattering. Her makeup was subtle, her hair done in soft waves. She looked perfect, but not for me. She barely looked at me during the ride over. Her attention was on her phone, thumbs dancing across the screen. Probably RSVPing. Probably letting someone know the script was unfolding. The Hamilton Hotel lobby was crowded when we arrived. All soft lights and murmured laughter. The smell of perfume and champagne thick in the air. Lily led the way, walking with purpose like she owned the place. And then it happened. We stepped inside the ballroom. The soft clinking of glasses, the low thump of bass, the small bursts of laughter everywhere. And without missing a beat, Lily turned sharply and walked ahead. Past the bar. Past the coat check. Past me. Like I wasn't even there. She didn't look back. Didn't slow down. She crossed the floor and dove straight into a cluster of people near the far wall. A few hands went up to greet her. Clinks of glass followed. Someone leaned in and kissed her on the cheek. I stood there in my suit, stunned. At first I thought, maybe she didn't see me. Maybe it was just the crowd. Then I saw her glance in my direction. A flicker of recognition. She turned away. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. You want the truth? Look at the table by the bar. I stared at the message. Heart pounding, I slowly lifted my gaze toward the bar. And there they were. Him, Ryan, and her. Seated side by side at a small cocktail table tucked just behind one of the floor-length columns. Like they were trying not to be obvious, but not trying that hard. His hand rested on her knee. Hers rested over his. She was smiling. Not polite smiling. Not coworker banter smiling. Real smiling. Soft. Familiar. Int asterisk mate. She leaned into him, whispering something in his ear. He laughed. Then tilted his head toward her like he was going to kiss her cheek. She didn't pull away. My mouth went dry. I felt the heat crawl up the back of my neck. That cold flush that happens when your body realizes something before your brain does. It wasn't just happening anymore. It had happened. It was real. I was the extra. I was the awkward man in the wrong movie scene, the stranger in the background watching the couple at the center of the frame. I stood there frozen, trying to breathe through the thick weight pressing into my chest. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Thought you deserved to see it for yourself. Sorry. I didn't respond. What was there to say? Everything that had been hidden was now obvious. Public. Lily didn't care who saw. She didn't care that I was there. That was the part one couldn't shake. She invited me not to explain, not to come clean, not even to patch the illusion. She invited me so I could see what I already suspected. So I could finally shut up about my paranoia. So she could say, well, you saw it, didn't you? Now you know. I don't remember how long I stood there. I must have looked insane. Just a man staring too hard in a room full of buzzed coworkers and fake laughter. But no one noticed. Everyone in that room either didn't know who I was, or had already stopped caring. Eventually, I turned and walked back toward the coat check. I didn't say goodbye, didn't text her, didn't make a scene. I just left, out into the cold, where the noise of the party couldn't follow. I got in my car and sat behind the wheel for a full 10 minutes, staring at the windshield, hands motionless. I kept thinking about how she'd looked at him, how long it had been since she looked at me like that. The party didn't break me, clarified everything. There were no excuses left to make. No more blind hope. No more maybe she's confused or maybe it's emotional, not physical. They weren't hiding anymore. She'd stopped pretending, at least when she thought I wasn't looking. And I realized something else. She had erased me long before this night. At work, she spoke about him. To her friends, she smiled about him. To herself, in quiet moments, she planned a future around him. I had become the background character in my own marriage. Placeholder. A safe fallback. A man she used to love, who still did the grocery shopping and took the trash out, and waited at home while she texted him under the dinner table. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't punch walls. I didn't scream at the sky. I just let it go. The weight I'd been carrying. All the doubt, the guesswork, the pretending. I dropped it, because now I knew. She wasn't coming back. Not really. Not emotionally. Not mentally. Not to me. She had already chosen someone else. All I had to do now was choose myself. The next morning, I drove to Frank's house, Lily's dad. He'd always liked me, respected me. He poured us coffee without asking questions. But the silence between us felt heavy. I told him everything. The restaurant, the driveway, the party. He didn't interrupt. When I finally finished, he sighed, rubbed his temples, and said quietly, "She hasn't mentioned your name in a long time, Harry. Not for months." That hit harder than the cheating. Not the affair. Not the lies. The silence. She hadn't just left me in practice. She'd erased me in conversation. I was already a ghost in her world. Frank offered me the guest room if I needed space. I nodded, unsure if I was more grateful or heartbroken. I packed her things and left them by the door. No note, no anger, just quiet. A week later, divorce papers came. She took the car. I kept the house. I sold my wedding ring. The buyer said, "Good luck." I said, "Don't drop it in a restaurant." Lily sent texts, a photo of the ring in her hand. "Is this really it?" I didn't reply. That silence? That was my answer. I stepped outside into the cold. For the first time in months, I could finally breathe.